coming up this Sunday is the big day, Halloween. We're dressed up for it. Are you already? No?
Should be if
okay.
you're not.
Well, so Halloween is a big deal, not just because of horror movies, but because of the dressing up factor, the fun of the holiday. So we thought we'd look at our favorite moments in film and TV where it's not a horror movie, but it takes place on Halloween, has characters trick-or-treating, what have you.
Yeah.
So, Spencer, what's a moment that sticks out in your mind for non-horror Halloween?
I'm going to pick, I mean, this is sort of a borderline one, I'll admit, but it's more of a comedy than a horror film. It's Murder Party, a little indie film. Probably not many people have heard of it, but it is about a guy, sort of lonely guy, who on Halloween, I think he's a security guard or something, he's going home, and he steps on an invitation to a party. It's like, come on, come to this party, and he's like, you know what, he's not initially going to do it, but he's just sitting home alone with his cat, and he decides to go to the party. Ends up this party is a bunch of hipsters who want to kill him and do artistic stuff as part of like the murder. And they all are too like into themselves that they sort of keep screwing up the murder of him. And it's really funny, it's really fun. It's got a little bit of gore to it, but nothing like...
Sounds like a very interesting premise, very dark comedy premise.
It's fun. It's a really funny film. It's really well produced. It's an enjoyable film. I seriously recommend checking it out if you're looking for something that's more comedic than gory.
Well, one moment for me that always pops into my head when I think of Halloween is the favorite TV show here, the MacGuffin podcast, Freaks and Geeks.
Yes.
They had their one Halloween episode for the one season they lasted, unfortunately, and that was the episode Tricks and Treats. And in that, we had the immortal sequence where Bill Haverchuck, played by Martin Starr, dressed up as Susan Summers, a bionic woman.
Yeah. That was good.
And so, you know, they go out and they start to get razzed by the bullies. And the bully Alan goes, "What are you supposed to be, Haverchuck? Are you a little girl?" And he's like, "I'm not a little girl, I'm a bionic woman." And that is just one of the best quotes ever, you know, not just Freaks and Geeks.
Yeah, that's a good quote. Martin Starr's an amazing guy, so.
And then you have stuff like, you know, Sam goes out, he wants to be Gort from The Day the Earth Stood Still, but it's just this really crappy robot costume his mom helped him with. It's cardboard.
Yeah.
Just everyone can relate to those costumes that you think in your head they're the best costumes ever. In reality, they're terrible.
Not so good, yeah. It's a great one. That's a classic. I'll go with a TV show, too. I'm going to do It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown.
Oh, yeah. A staple of October.
Technically, you know, it sounds like it's a Thanksgiving kind of thing by talking about pumpkins, but it's actually set on Halloween, where all the kids go to a party, except for Linus, I believe it is, who decides to stay in the pumpkin patch because he's convinced that the Great Pumpkin is going to come and give, like, presents to all those, sort of like a Santa Claus character. It's a wonderful sort of tradition, you know, as you said, it's on every year. I love Peanuts, they're funny. Maybe not like
I'm sorry, just the way you were saying that in my mind, I was like, if somebody just walked by and heard that, you're like, I love Peanuts, they're funny. You're like, this crazy guy is talking to Peanuts, he thinks they're funny.
It's crazy, I admit it. But you know, it's not like South Park funny or outrageous or anything like that, but it's just
nice, wholesome fun.
Yeah. So you know, it's a classic. It's set on Halloween. If you got something you want to watch that's not horror related, it's a good one.
For me, I have an obscure movie from the 70s, which is done by a well-known horror director, but it is not a horror movie, and that is 1976's Kenyan Company. It was directed by Don Coscarelli, who has done Bubba Hotep in the Phantasm series, and actually within this Halloween sequence, he got the idea to make Phantasm. So what happens is a group of kids, it's about these 3 young kids in like junior high, they're going out trick-or-treating, and they go into this guy's haunted house. It's in his garage. And they're looking around and they see a bunch of spooky stuff, and all of a sudden, the guy jumps out, his face has a bunch of makeup on it, he looks like this horrible monster, they run out screaming. And it's this really fun sequence, it really, you know, gets you a little bit on edge for being a comedy. But in that sequence, Coscarelli was inspired to, you know, he loved the way the audience jumped when that guy popped out as the monster. He's like, my next movie, everyone's gonna jump every minute, you know, it's just gonna be a straight up horror movie, and from that came Phantasm.
It's good to see that inspiration come to fruition. So. I'm gonna give another it's not a horror film per se, but it's another dark-ish kind of movie, and that's The Crow. The Crow, you might not realize it, but it's set, I believe, the night before Halloween, called Devil's Night or whatever, and where these gang members are basically burning down the city, and that's where the Crow sort of begins his afterlife, I guess it is, if you will. Amazing performance by Brandon Lee. Very tragic story, of course. Everyone knows that, but he's so embodied the character as one of those.
It was really a star-making performance. Like, had he not sadly died,
Yeah.
you know, he would be a big star now.
And you know, you look back at the film, and there's a lot of kind of cheesy stuff in it if you just take it at face value and don't really sort of get into embrace the concept.
Yeah, and also the world. You're right. The world that they create on Devil's Night and these gangs,
Yeah.
just the dark, kind of gritty, alternate reality. 'Cause
very
it feels sort of like our world, but it's just a little off.
And the drug sort of part of it is kind of crazy and stuff like that. Got to give a shout out, by the way, to Ernie Hudson.
Yes, our guest on the MacGuffin podcast in previous days.
He was the co-star, but he was also the support, like the one supporting guy who was helping.
He really had the crow's back.
Yeah, he had the crow's back. So classic film. It is actually, you know, set on Halloween, basically.
So that counts. We're not lying to you, folks.
And it's not really a horror film. I mean,
definitely not.
It's just dark.
So for my next little pick, it's actually a few episodes of a TV show. I tend to think TV does Halloween really well because they can, you know, come back to it. They have an episode like, oh, this will be our holiday episode. And one of my favorite shows is South Park. And for their first 3 seasons, my favorite episodes on South Park were their Halloween ones. In the first season, you had Pink Eye, which was this zombie spoof of like Return of the Living Dead, where Worcestershire sauce causes people to become zombies. And then, you know, everyone in town turns into zombies, and they realize that the only way they can turn them back is by killing the leader, which was Kenny. So they kill the leader. Unfortunately, they've already chopped up half the town into little pieces, so they come back to life, and they're like, oh, kill me. So that's great. The next year, we had Spooky Fish, where Stan thinks his pet fish is an evil fish, and it's from an alternate dimension. And you also get this great moment where the alternate versions of the boys come through, where they're all evil except for Cartman, who's really nice, and sings songs about how he's such good friends with the guys. And the first time it aired, and when you see it on DVD, it was shown in Spooky Vision, where you get pictures of Barbra Streisand in every corner of the screen. And so that's classic. And the last one that they did within those first 3 seasons was Korn's Groovy Pirate Ghost Mystery, where the heavy metal band Korn played the Scooby-Doo gang. Yeah, and I think it is so funny. Okay, in high school, I was a giant Korn fan, so I loved the episode just from that, but it is hilarious. And they talk about the weird things, like the bizarre sidekicks that would show up, like all of a sudden this weird bird monster is their friend, and the chief is like, what the hell is that thing? So just very, very fun times on South Park Halloweens.
It's a great one. I'm going to go for possibly an obvious one, but nevertheless a good, non-scary one. Nightmare Before Christmas. Like an amazing film. You know, Jack Skellington is probably one of the most memorable characters, even though he's not a living guy. I mean, he's
definitely one of the most iconic animated characters of recent years, at least the last 20 years.
Was it claymation in that was
stop
done
motion.
Fantastic by Henry Selick, though Tim Burton gets most of the credit.
Yes, unfortunately.
It's a really nice story, really inventive, creative, pretty much just an amazing thing all around.
You're realizing we're wearing costumes and people are watching.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right, so also another TV thing for me, probably my favorite show of all time is The Simpsons. And every year since the 2nd season, it's been a staple to have the Treehouse of Horror, where they have 3 horror stories. And 2 of my favorite episodes of The Simpsons are Treehouse of Horror 4 and 5 from the 5th and 6th seasons, respectively. And in Treehouse of Horror 4, you get the great stories where Homer sells his soul to the devil for a donut. Also, we get the Twilight Zone spoof where Bart sees a gremlin on the side of the bus. Totally love that. Everyone thinks he's crazy. And then we wrap it up with Bart Simpson's Dracula, a spoof of Bram Stoker's Dracula. And then, for no reason at all, the episode ends with a musical number where a killer fog turns the family inside out. So it's always fun times with that. Then the part 5 of the Treehouse of Horror, which came in season 6, is probably the bloodiest cartoon I've ever seen, at least on the big networks. This is the one that has the Shining spoof called The Shining, which, I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to that saw that before they saw The Shining, like myself included. I saw that when I was in, like, you know, maybe 3rd grade, and then I went to The Shining. I was like, oh, it's just like The Simpsons, you know?
Just like The Shining.
And there are just so many hilarious things, like, you know, all work or no TV and no beer make Homer something.
Go crazy, don't mind if I do.
And then
we're reenacting it right now for you if you've never seen it.
Then also we have the segment Time and Punishment, where Homer inadvertently turns his toaster into a time machine and changes the past and the future. Honestly, when the butterfly effect came out, all I could think was, oh, it's a Simpsons Halloween special, but serious.
Clever, I gotta give it up to
And
him.
then they wrap it up with Nightmare Cafeteria, where the teachers turn into cannibals.
I remember that.
And it ends with Milhouse falling into a big grinder, and you know.
Good times.
Actually, now that I think about it, I might be totally mistaken. This episode might be the one that airs with a murderous fog. Either way, you're getting some murderous fog in these episodes. I guarantee it.
I'm going to go back to the realm of film for my next one.
I'm going to go away from murderous cartoon fog.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to do the film Space Invaders. Comedy from 1990, directed by Patrick Reed Johnson, who did Angus as well, for those of you who remember. It's basically about a group of aliens who catch wind of Orson Welles' War of the Worlds and think that aliens are attacking the world. Of course, they unfortunately have the timing to be arriving on A, this is not actually happening, it's just a story, and B, they come on Halloween.
So everyone
thinks they're just kids in costumes, and so nobody treats them as actual aliens trying to conquer the world. It's a fun story.
Oh, definitely. And correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't it star Ariana Richards, who would later go on to be in Jurassic Park and Angus?
It does, yeah.
Giant childhood crush. Before I was 10, she was my girlfriend in my mind, you know?
Very nicely done, John.
Thank you.
You did well for yourself.
That's pretty hot and heavy. Yeah. But yeah, definitely a fun film. One that I'm going to go throw out. There's also something in the realm of The Crow, sort of a little darker movie, but not horror, and that is Donnie Darko. The big climactic moments of the movie were kind of all the hitting the fan, like everything that the premonitions Donnie's been hearing about, they're finally coming to a head on Halloween night. So you get, the great Halloween party.
You get
Frank, exactly. That all ties together. And I just think the actual party itself is just such a great Halloween party. The way Richard Kelly shoots it, when Donnie starts to lose it, or he realizes, the bell's tolling, it's almost the time that Frank's been telling him about. And we get this great shot where it starts on Jake Gyllenhaal's face, and the camera turns around. It does a 360, not around his body, but just like on his face. And suddenly he's upside down, and just the way that shot puts you into his mindset. Then suddenly the party is just really creepy and weird. He starts to see, the liquid arrows leading people around, and just something bad's gonna happen. And of course, it all comes to a head that night.
It's a great movie, great Halloween sequence, some great, very memorable costumes and stuff too. So.
You're kind of akin to that.
I'm kind of akin to that. I'm gonna give a shout out while we're on the subject of Halloween party type things. The Karate Kid.
What? Who would have known you would have liked the Karate Kid?
Who would imagine with a costume like this that I like the Karate Kid?
Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it the a-holes who wear that costume?
It is.
Oh, doesn't
so unfortunately,
the more things change, the more they stay the same. They say, right?
Unfortunately, a shower costume couldn't really fit into our set and our budget. So,
but that is such a great Halloween dance number. I mean, Elizabeth Shue as Princess Leia. I mean, to me, that's hotter than Carrie Fisher as Princess
dance
Leia.
Number, and it sort of is the first time the confrontation between Daniel-san and the bullies really sort of reach ahead, and Mr. Miyagi steps in and finally helps him out. And
Mr. Miyagi beats the shit out of some kids in that movie.
I'm gonna finally help you train. This has gone too far.
But also, it sets up the romance really nicely as well. You get that nice dance since he's within the shower. He closes himself off from everybody. It's very cute.
So that's a great sequence, great Halloween party sequence. One other Halloween one that I was gonna mention was E.T.
Oh, one of the best comedic moments in that movie. Yeah. I love just, E.T. dressed up as the ghost, and the way he's talking with the mom, and Dee Wallace is just so oblivious.
Again, another alien on Halloween kind of thing,
I know.
It's a wacky premise, You don't realize that it's not actually an alien.
Whoa.
Yeah, but it's a classic scene, as you said.
Well, the way it's shot, you see through the eye holes of E.T. as he's seeing the world in Halloween.
The POV.
You get the great joke where he sees Yoda and he's like, home.
Yeah. I recognize you.
Yeah.
No, it's a wonderful movie. It's a really great, again, use of Halloween as a plot element in the movie. So
also the famous moment from E.T. with them flying over the moon happens that night. It's on Halloween night.
So good on you, Steven Spielberg.
Definitely, and I think that's all I had on my list.
So let us know if we missed any great Halloween moments out there.
Yeah, what are some of your favorites? Non-horror Halloween moments. MacGuffinPodcast.com is where you can find that. The non-scary and the scary alike.
Yeah, but today you're going to tell us your not-so-scary stuff. Last week was for the more scary. Today is for the fun.
Unless you're saying underrated horror.
Yeah, if you're underrated horror scary, well, I guess that's good too.
We don't want to discriminate against emails.
Okay, we're not going to discriminate.
If you want to talk about comedies, that's fine.
Whatever you want, yeah. Valentine's Day movies,
we're lonely
whatever.
people. Just talk
Christmas,
to us, please.
Thanksgiving, any holiday, really.
Won't you write us?
Please.
T-1000 can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Magneto can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Even Zod can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. It's tight, don't even try to bite the side style. Mr. Spock can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. The Wrath of Khan can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. The Borg can't stop me. I'm on fire tonight. Because I've got space game and it feels alright.